Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I'm doing my June wrap-up. I read 24 books in June. Ask me how many of those were on my TBR. Maybe 3. I mean, actually I think maybe closer to 7 were on my TBR. So that's something. But after I did my TBR, I realized that it was June somehow. And I made adjustments on the fly, which also meant that I had a goal of reading about 16 books in 2 weeks. I did read about 11. It was shorter ones, naturally, so the rest of them have gone onto my July TBR, because that's just how that works. Anyway, let's get into the books that I did read in June. Like I said, 24, which is a remarkable reading month. Remarkable. And it won't happen again for a while. But first, I read books 1 through 10 of the Race Against Time series by J.J. Fortune, which include Revenge in the Silent Tomb, Escape from Raven Castle, Search for Mad Jack's Crown, Duel for the Samurai Sword, Pursuit of the Deadly Diamonds, Journey to Atlantis, Evil in Paradise, Secret of the Third Watch, Trapped in the USSR, and Danger Due North. Between all 10 of them, the average rating was 2.5. Some of them were better than others. Some of them were definitely worse. They were, I will say, published in the 1980s, in case you couldn't tell from the USSR comment or title. So there was a lot of sexism. It was a very Indiana Jones meets James Bond kind of a moment. I can get behind the principle of James Bond meets Indiana Jones. I don't love the 1980s version of it, because it just... Uncle Archaeologist takes his, 12-year-old nephew, 13-year-old nephew? I think the kid is supposed to be 12 or 13, but he acts more like a 17-year-old, and I just don't comprehend that. But he takes this 13-year-old nephew on trips all around the world and gets him into all sorts of trouble, while womanizing the first woman who they meet. Obviously this is a very straight series, which is also... It's 1980s. Need I say more? So, that said, then I read The Inflammation Spectrum by Will Cole and Eve Adamson, which was a book recommended to be by my health coach, Courtney. Again, information always linked down below. She's amazing. And this one, I mean, obviously specifically helps you figure out what foods inflame your body, and it gives you an elimination diet for either 4 weeks or 8 weeks to try and cut out what seems like damn near everything in an effort to kind of get your body back to what it should be and figure out specifically what foods inflame your body and make it worse. I have no desire and therefore no discipline to try either the 4 or 8 week diet right now. However, there were a lot of good tidbits in the book, such as turmeric helps with inflation, cinnamon helps with inflation in another part of your body. So I did get a lot of herbs and stuff like that out of it. I just didn't love the fact that it was very much so, you need to follow this book precisely or you're not going to live your best life. Well, sorry, sir, but fuck you. I will live my life how I like, and if I feel fine, then there's no problem with it. Cutting out that much food, I don't like it. It is so much work. But I did ultimately give it a 3.5 stars because, like I said, I did get good tidbits out of it, and I think if you have the problems that he describes, it makes absolute sense to do an elimination diet, and he gives you recipes and goals and help to do it. I just haven't reached that point in my life. Then I read 1 through 6 in the Maggie Hope series by Susan Elia McNeill, which includes Mr. Churchill's secretary, Princess Elizabeth's spy, His Majesty's Hope, the Prime Minister's secret agent, Miss Roosevelt's confidant, and the Queen's accomplice. So those ones, there we go. Those are murder mysteries set in the 1940s, principally the UK, as you may have been able to tell since we don't have royalty or prime ministers here in the US. These were given to me by a friend when she was moving about a year ago, and I told my mom that if I thought she would like them, she could take them home with her. They went on a road trip when they visited me. And if I didn't like them, she could take them home and see if she liked them and then give them away. As it turns out, I actually really liked them, so when I go home for Thanksgiving, I'm going to grab them. But she did take them so that she can read them, because I do think she'll like them. I will say there is actually some rep in this. There are a couple relationships that are not straight. There's not a lot of, if any, racial representation. So I think there might have been a Japanese person, and there might have been a black person, but that part was definitely lacking. Well, that's old. Yeah, I don't know when they were published, but other than that, I do think these books were really fun. I liked the setting. I liked Maggie. She didn't fall into the typical I'm not like other girls kind of a trope. She was very much so, I am smart, I know it, here's what I can do, here's why you're gonna give it to me, and why the hell aren't you treating women the same? Very much so calling out the men of her time, which I loved. So average rating for these 6 books was a 3.5. Some of them I enjoyed more just because it felt like it got out more. The first one was a little bit slower and then it really picked up. So if you enjoy murder mysteries and specifically historical ones, I would definitely give these a look. Next I read The Crush Necklace by Jessie Paddock because my cousin's middle kid wanted me to read it. She had just finished it. This is a book about a kid in middle school who finds a necklace that supposedly lights up neon blue when your crush is into you. And so she starts paying attention to this necklace that she's wearing, and it lights up when she does these things, but then throughout the book, obviously something's not quite right with the necklace. I gave this one a 3.5. There were definitely parts that I went, ew, don't love that, but even so, granted, I wouldn't have liked them in middle school either because they would have reminded me of my awkwardness in middle school. It was not a good time. But I think it did a pretty good job of that. I do think largely it just felt a little bit shallow, I guess might be the word. But the lesson in it I loved and would definitely recommend for middle schoolers. Okay, next up I read Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is a memoir by a woman in the health food, well, sort of. It's a woman's memoir on essentially how to come back to yourself. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I fucking loved that one. I think I actually gave it 5 stars. I did. It's a series of anecdotes, essentially, that she ties together through the entire thing. So the chapters are super short. Her writing is... it feels conversational, but it's not like she's writing dialogue, if that makes sense, which I loved. She is religious, but she's A, not cram it down your throat religious, and B, not your traditional rigid Protestant or Catholic rituals. She was very much so, yeah, I grew up like this. I've come to a different conclusion now, and here's where I'm at. She didn't tell you what you had to do at any point in time. She just told you about her life and let you draw your own conclusions on what you should do. I loved it. I also resonated so much with her. She also came out as lesbian after having 2 kids with her husband, realized that she wasn't into guys. And now she's living with the love of her life and her 2 kids in Florida. I don't know. Mostly irrelevant, but I resonated a lot with her life and kind of how she came to the conclusions and stuff like that. So it was really nice to read something that just went, oh, I'm not abnormal. I'm not weird. So I enjoyed that, but yes, ultimately 5 out of 5 stars. I loved that book. First of all, I read a novella. Binti Sacred Fire? That sounds right. Yep, I read Binti Sacred Fire by Nnedi Okorafor. This was a novella in obviously the Binti trilogy. It is an African futurist series where a woman from the Himba peoples in the futuristic version of, I believe, Nigeria, simply because Nnedi Okorafor is of Nigerian descent, goes to a prestigious university in space. Because these are novellas, that's all I'm gonna say. At least this time. I know I've said more before, but that's because it's also on the back. But right now, that's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, I have read the first one before and I really enjoyed it. I must say I did like the second one. I liked watching where this is going and how it's developing, so I'm very excited to continue the rest of the series. But this one was actually on my TBR for June because it was the collection or bind up, and it is on my July TBR because of the same reason. So I will continue. I also read Artificial Condition by Martha Wells, which is book 2 in the Murderbot series. We follow a murderbot, as the title may suggest, around on space adventures, which I enjoy. Each one is sort of its own distinct space adventure, but it's all connected in an overarching plot, kind of like a TV show. And it's great. I love it. So I will be reading the third one this month. This one was also on my TBR. I'm pretty sure this was on my TBR because Gifted came up, and I got this from Abby of Pelennor, who you should definitely check out because she's amazing and hilarious and has a fantastic sense of reading taste. I also read You Learn by Living by Eleanor Roosevelt. This is a nonfiction that I read for my book club, which provides essentially 11 steps or 11 lessons for living a better life. It's very short, not mind-boggling. Oh yes, this is my wrap-up. I suppose I should tell you how many stars I gave these. Binti I gave 4. Murderbot I gave, I think, another 4. 4.5. This one I gave 4.5 as well. It's not life-changing. There are definitely some cringy parts in it, but that's looking at it from a 2021 perspective, especially on feminism. Eleanor Roosevelt was progressive for her time. My God. She was all for racial equality. She was all for sexual identity or orientation equality. Feminism, like, you got it. But there were parts that felt very incongruous, specifically with the feminism aspect, because she would say something like, oh, women deserve equal pay, why aren't we getting it? And then turn around and go, well, women should be keeping house for their husband. Excuse me? Do you not hear yourself? That said, however, there were a lot of really good points that still resonate today. I loved that aspect of it, and I do think it's a book worth reading, particularly because it's short, and particularly if you live in the States, because she is kind of a big name here. At least I think so. Again, my version of who's a big name and who's not is very skewed because of the amount of historical fiction and nonfiction that I read. And then the last one I read in hard copy is Body Love by Kelly LeBake. I love this book. I think I gave it a 4.5, maybe a 5 star, because I do think this actually will be life-changing. This was also recommended to me by my health coach, Courtney, and it has a ton of recipes that I really want to try, which is part of why I got it, to just help you feel better in your body and eat healthier. So, this I bought myself because I wanted a copy, but I love this book. So yeah, those are all of the books I read in June. Like I said, a lot of books, and I would have shown you the Maggie Hope series, except that I don't have them right now. My mother has taken them. With my blessing, of course. I think she'll like them. Those are the books I read in June. Like I said, fantastic reading month. I'm not sure what happened, but here we are. So that's all I have. If you've read any of these books, whatever, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!